All right. Welcome, everyone. We have a very special training with Coran Woodmass today. He's going to teach you how to position your Amazon FBA business to potentially double your exit. So I'm super excited to have Coran on. My name is Gary Huang. I'm the host of the Seven Figure Seller Summit, and welcome, everyone. And welcome, Coran. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Gary. Thanks for having me back on. This is fun.
Excellent. So for those of you that haven't seen the Seven Figure Seller Summit, I hosted Coran and 20 other seven-figure e-commerce Amazon sellers and experts, and we really, dissected how to scale your business to seven figures. So today, we had a lot of Q&A as well. We had like over 50 questions, so we're going to try to get through everything, but if we don't, we apologize for that. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. And then also, for those of you guys that can see us, because we are live, this is like the real world. If you can see us, if you can please type your name and where you're watching from in the window, that would be amazing. So first, let me quickly introduce Coran again. For those of you guys who don't know Coran, I think most of you know him. This guy's pretty internet famous in the Amazon world. So Coran Woodmass, he helps e-commerce brands sell their business for the highest value and the best deal terms, especially Amazon businesses. Okay, so he's the founder of the FBA broker, and they help Amazon and e-commerce sellers build and sell in the 7 to 8 figure range. And right now they're working on their first 9-figure deal. He also runs a podcast called The Truth About Exits. And I invited him on because Coran, as a broker, he has the unique perspective because he really sees how the Amazon FBA deals gets done from all different sides of the transaction, from the buy side, the sell side. He's seen so many deals. He's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think he has a wealth of information that he can share with us today. So I see a lot of people in the call. Welcome, James, Peter from Sydney, Tusip from Sydney, Martin's from Mudgee, Opal from Folsom, California, Hey Kate in Chicago, Cass from New Zealand, Browen, Peter, what's going on, man, from Hong Kong. We got Amy from Houston. We got a lot more. Stuart and Leah from New Mexico. How are you guys? Samantha from UK. Gary from London. I think you guys are like 1 a.m. So thank you for coming on. Anthony from Hawaii. Itzek from Brooklyn. Okay, so we have a global audience today. Coran, where are you calling from? Why don't you let us know your status right now?
Yeah, I'm back in Austin, Texas. I'm actually from Australia, so I see a couple of Aussies on here. That's kind of awesome. I'm from Brisbane, Australia originally. Haven't lived there in over 7 years now, but currently in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And we were both in Thailand when we did the seven-figure summit.
Correct. Yeah, just a few months ago, both of us were in Thailand, in Chiang Mai at the same time. But who knows? Like the whole world changed. But the beauty of summits like this is that regardless where you are, if you're in lockdown or you're in the U.S., I'm in Japan right now, we can still come together. We can surround ourselves with like-minded people so we can level up. So thank you, Coran, for your time, and thank you everybody for coming today. So to start out, Coran, could you give us like a big picture overview? What is the state of the Amazon FBA business marketplace right now? How has COVID changed the market? What are you seeing right now? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. So we deal in 7 and 8 figure transactions. So everything I'm talking about is in this range. So below $1 million, we don't actually deal with too much in that range. So just for context, right? So what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a similar sell-through rate to what we're seeing last year that we spoke about last time, at around 23% sell-through rate. So if 100 businesses list, only about 23 of them are actually going to sell in any 12-month period. What we're actually seeing right now is a lot of deals actually come back to market. So we've been monitoring and reporting on the entire marketplace, anything that's publicly available for sale for over 4.5 years. So it's helpful for us to get that perspective. but we're literally seeing deals go under offer and then come back to market. One of our 8-figure deals recently, this Monday actually, came back to market. The buyers weren't able to complete the full funding raise that they were doing. They were raising debt to fund the transaction. They got about halfway before our exclusivity went up. They're still looking to fund the transaction. We still want to do the deal with them. But because that exclusivity's come up, we've gone back to market to see if we can find a buyer who could close quicker for that deal. That business is actually exploding right now. It's up about 500% year over year. They're definitely capitalizing is the wrong word. They're in a good position because of their category at the moment. I know some businesses aren't, some businesses are. So that's what we're really seeing is funding is starting to pick back up again on these larger deals, the 8-figure deals, plus the 7-figure deals in the US. Actually, there's a lot of activity because of the FBA program. The Small Business Administration program is putting out a lot of money right now to help stimulate the economy. So those $1 million deals that fit that criteria, there's still a lot of buyer activity in that space. Trends in the business really matter right now. If you are seeing a dip in sales, maybe it's not the best time to sell, to go into the market. You want to negotiate from a position of strength. If you're coming to market in a dipped position, every buyer is going to say, well, we don't know how long this is going to last, so you're going to have to share some of the risk with us. We have seen some of these offers recently that just don't make sense. The buyer kind of says, well, I'm being your friend here. We're working on this together. What's actually happening is you're taking all the risk, right? They're saying we'll share the risk moving forward, but it just means they're getting a bit better deal moving into the deal. So if you don't have to sell right now, I'd really take a pause and only go to sell if you're in a really strong position, because any little blip right now and savvy buyers or investors are going to take advantage. They're looking for deals.
Interesting. So it seems that you're seeing a similar sell-through rate between 20 and 23%, which in other words, it's only 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 Amazon businesses that go to market. And then also it seems that if you are taking a dip in sales because of COVID, you should wait. You shouldn't like sell out of desperation, because these buyers, they're very savvy, right? They see like a little dip, they're going to try to like, cut your price. So you should wait it out. Okay, this is golden information. Thank you for that. And so in terms of the questions for today, for you guys in the audience, we're going to cover a couple of broad topics based on the questions you guys submitted. And then at the end, we'll have some more Q&A if we have time. If you guys have any specific questions, you can type it in the chat window. And then if we can, we'll try to get to it. But we're going to try to maximize our time because we only have 1 hour. Okay. And for those of you guys that stick around until the very end, Coran has a special offer for you guys watching. I don't want to give it away. It's a surprise, but I encourage you guys, if you can, please stay on until the very end. Okay. All right. So the game plan for today. Okay. We're going to start off talking about some best practices for sellers starting out, how to properly structure your business, your Amazon business to maximize your sale. Then Coran's going to offer some insights from the buyer's perspective. What are the important features a buyer looks for in that business? Okay. Then we're going to talk about evaluation, how you can estimate the value of your business, and then how you can maximize your selling price so you can double that exit. And then when you do want to sell, preparation, what are the most significant aspects during prep for business to sell that should be, that you should focus on. And finally, we're going to cover some of the costs, of selling an Amazon business, legal costs, fees, commissions, and ranges. So we got a lot on our plate today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So Coran, to start out, for sellers that are starting out, they're still maybe like, setting up their accounts. What are some things that they should be thinking about and setting up now for the successful sale of their business down the road?
Yeah, great question. Don't rush. Take one step at a time. Most people think I build a business and then one day I think about selling and then I go sell the next day. That's a horrible way to sell a business. What you want to realize is that there's 3 stages of a business. The first is the startup phase. And really, if you're starting out, you're in a startup phase. That's pretty obvious. But this is what this means, is you're figuring out what works, what doesn't. You're figuring out your first product that really hits, and then you're building out a suite of products around that ideal target market. And this is absolutely critical right now, is to build out a brand around a target market. I know there's some other questions on this topic, so I'll definitely cover those. But that's key. Figure out what works and then double down on that space. Get to know your customer, solve real problems for the customer, build a better product, and have it defensible. So move towards as much defensibility as you can. Trademarks, patents, whatever that is, make the product better. Don't just have a Me Too product once you have traction, right? That's okay when you're just starting out, but you want to get that traction first. And don't sell at that point. Once you've just found something that worked, don't sell there if you want to maximize the sell.
Sorry, that last part, can you say that again?
Yep. So when you're in the startup phase, this just figuring out what works, that's not the ideal time to sell a business for the maximum value.
Right, I see. And is there any like time period that a seller should be running their business, like the minimum amount of time before they can even start considering it? So they're not considered, too young or too new.
Yeah, so time is relative. It's more about the stages. So that was the first stage, is the startup. The second stage is where you're in growth mode. So once you've figured out what works, you're doubling down, you're adding products, you're improving the products, you're selling to that target market, you're expanding your product range. That's the growth phase. Once you're done with the growth phase, you've got a good suite of products, you've got good margins in place. Then you can move to the third stage, which is optimizing the business for profitability, right? And that is the time when it is the best time to go sell the business. Unfortunately, there's no hard and fast rule. We've seen the startup phase in some clients take 1 year, 2 years to really get that first thing going. We've seen the growth phase last anywhere from 2 to 3 years. We've seen the optimization phase not kick in for 5 to 7 years plus, right? So it really depends on the business. Actually, I put out an email earlier this week on this topic, the stages of business and selling too soon. The founder of Victoria's Secret, actually, he sold his business for $1 million, sold Victoria's Secret for $1 million 5 years in to after he created that brand. The company that acquired them currently has a market cap of over $3 billion. So maybe he sold a little bit early.
Wow. Which phase was he in, if you could speculate?
I'd say he was still in the startup phase.
Okay.
If he'd only got to $1 million in revenue after 5 years, I think maybe he was touching into the growth phase, but also he had his story is quite tragic, but you could go and look at that later.
Yeah. Wow. That he left like billions of dollars on the table, or she, the founder, by selling too early, right? Only 1 million. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then I'm curious, especially for Amazon, there's, people that that are considering like opening up like multiple accounts for like their different private label brands. What's your take on that? I mean, is it better to have, like if I have like 3 private label brands, for example, that like separate seller central account and separate business entity LLC, or what's your advice about that? From the start, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, don't. We see so many clients in the early stages. So if they're in the startup phase, don't start more than one brand. Focus on one brand. There's many reasons for this. What we often see is people run out of capital and they run out of interest in one brand, right? So it doesn't get the full attention. And this only applies if you're trying to maximize the value when you sell. If you just want to diversify, you want to build income, but you're not interested in selling for the maximum amount, then do that. Have multiple brands, multiple accounts. You've got things to do with them. You can sell one, you can keep one. But if you're really going for the maximum exit possible, hands down, the best way to do that is one focused brand. Give it all your time, all your attention, all your capital to make it as big and as profitable as you can.
Interesting. So focus on one brand, give it all your time and attention. And then obviously it has like the brand portfolio of product all target the same customer, the same audience. So it's everything's related, in that brand, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's,
great.
There's already one everything store. There's already one everything store. It's called Amazon. We don't need another one.
Correct. And then Peter agrees. He says focus on one brand. Good tip. All right. This is excellent. All right. So
Thanks,
Peter. Yeah. Excellent. And then someone else asked, right now in 2020, is now a good time to start? And is it now a good time to start if you're on the fence? What do you think, Coran?
It depends on your skill set. Depends on your skill set, your capital available. I wouldn't say this type of business model is for everyone, actually. So but if you're wanting to start, if this sounds like something you want to do and you're interested in it, absolutely get started. Be smart about it. Have your eyes open. Maybe the training that you've done 2 years ago won't really apply right now. You want to use some common sense about what's happening in the market. But I think there's always opportunity. The consumer behavior is becoming more online. Less people want to go into the store. Some stores aren't even open still. So the buyer behavior is shifting to online.
Yes.
And Amazon's a great way to get started because all the customers are there. So
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, for many people in lockdown, Amazon is their lifeline, right? I mean, they don't want to risk going to the store. All the other places are closed, right? So Amazon is, really, they're reaping the benefits of this. And then I saw that Carl had one quick question. If selling in the US, should I register my company in the US or is Canada registration okay? What's your take, Coran?
Yeah. So I'm guessing Carl is from Canada. This is a common point of contention. I would set up my company where I am. There's all sorts of legal ramifications for being elsewhere and tax implications. So if you're based in Canada and you're selling in the US, having a Canada entity is fine, a Canadian entity. We have a number of deals right now that are Canadian-based entities. Not a problem. We're still finding a lot of buyer interest. It's all about the business. So you need to build a good brand. You need all the metrics that we're going to talk about here today. But the entity location, especially when you're getting started, I think maybe he's talking about getting started here. Just go with the easiest option. Go at home and get started. Get some traction before you even worry about that stuff.
Good question. And thanks, Carl. Okay. So moving on, I feel whenever you're, considering selling a business or just doing business in general, you want to know the other party's perspective, right? So if we're looking to sell, we should try to understand the buyer's perspective, kind of put ourselves in their shoes, just to learn more, what important features a buyer looks for in a business, what are the key factors that buyers are looking for. What are some of the attributes like sales and making an Amazon business to a buyer? And Coran, I know you work with a ton of buyers. Can you share some of these golden nuggets with us from the buyer's perspective?
Sorry, you just broke up in the middle there. I'm not sure if it's my end or your end.
Okay, I do apologize. We are live. Yep. Yeah. Where was I cut off?
The middle bit. You said what a buyer's looking for, I think, and then there was something, and then at the end. Yeah.
Okay. So from the buyer's perspective, what's the most important feature a buyer looks for in a business? These key factors, and then also the sales or other attributes that Amazon businesses, should present to make themselves more attractive to buyers? Because we're only talking about a 20% sell-through rate, 1 in 5. So how can you be one of the 5 so you can successfully sell and exit, right?
Yeah, so I might answer that in a different way. So we work specifically sell side. So we work with our clients to get the best result possible. We don't actually work on the buy side. So this is our perspective, is how to get you the best outcome. We still have relationships with a lot of buyers, and there's different types of buyers too, right? So the first buyer, Cass is saying both of our connections are cutting out. Sorry about that, Cass. Yeah. Well, there's not much we can do about it. We're live.
Yeah.
I have pretty crazy good connection here, but maybe it's not coming through for some reason. Anyway, so buyer's perspective. So there's different pools of buyers that I like to talk about. And the first and the most common, you've probably even heard some of these buyers on different podcasts and stuff, they're e-commerce buyers. So they're or Amazon-based buyers. They're looking to buy a portfolio of brands. They don't really care about growing the individual brand. They're just looking to acquire as many brands as possible. There's a lot of groups doing this. And the problem with that is they're all kind of looking at value very similar. So they're all seeing value the same way. So what we do when we take a deal to market, and why it's so important to have a focused brand, is that we can actually appeal to strategic acquirers. So last year we had a business that appealed to toy companies, and because of their tight focus, we managed to reach out to the top toy companies on earth, sat down with multi-billion-dollar toy companies about a mostly Amazon-based business, right? And they see value very differently. There's a toy industry multiple that's completely different to an e-commerce or an FBA multiple. So yeah, that's who's buying the business. There'll be very different metrics behind that. So if you're starting out, that's why I talk about a tight focused brand so much, as if you're in a category, then you can look at who's acquiring in that category and what are they looking for, right? In the toy space specifically, because I was talking about that, what they're looking for is the next thing, right? They want to know where the customer demand is going to be, and they want to get ahead of it because of their distribution. So they're looking for new innovative products or games or whatever it is that they can push into their distribution and get ahead of demand. So that's what they're looking for. It's cheaper for them to acquire companies than it is to go out and develop 100 new products every year. So that's in the toy space. You're really wanting to get closer to the customer. So large companies like Unilever, like P&G, they're buying consumer product brands that sell direct to the consumer, D2C companies that have that relationship with the customer. Admittedly, if you're just selling on Amazon, you don't have a direct connection, a direct line to your customer, but you have figured out product market fit. So in some cases, we're seeing buyers right now saying, oh, you're doing really well on Amazon. This product would be perfect in our retail distribution. Let's plug that in over here and put you in 3,000 stores worldwide, right? So I think that's the biggest opportunity when it comes to value. Otherwise, you're looking at everyone looking at value the same way. So the FBA buyers, they all have the same multiple, they all have the same game plan, and they just don't care about your brand.
Interesting. So from like a big toy company's perspective, they can look for Amazon FBA business that is targeting their same target audience, maybe kids between like toddlers, and that they're selling this one really cool toy that's killing it on Amazon. But it's a lot cheaper for them to acquire something like this, and to source it out. Is that right?
Yeah. Or a suite of products, even better. You want diversification. Yeah. A limiting factor in value with any buyer, even a highly strategic, is if you have one hero product that's the bulk of your revenue, that's going to limit the multiple, the value that a buyer would place on it. You want a good mix of products. So look at your individual SKUs, individual products. How much as a percentage of revenue is each of those products doing? You ideally don't want one product being more than 20 or 30% of your overall revenue.
Mhm. I see. So you don't want one hero product and like some minions. You want to have, no more than 20%. Okay. And then is there like a minimum like threshold of products that buyers like to see in the portfolio?
Yeah, so typically they want to see some scale, right? There's a reason we started focusing only on 7 and 8 figure deals, because that's what they're looking for. They want you to prove some scale, have some success in the market, and really $1 million in revenue is kind of the baseline for a lot of them. And even more of them, it's $1 million in net profit and above. We have a lot of buyers. I had a call last week with a buyer who said our minimum is 7 million of EBITDA and above. So 7 million in net profit annually and above is what they're looking for. So there's actually more buyers. The larger the business gets, the more buyers there are, everything else being equal, as long as it's still a targeted brand, because it's just really hard to do. It's really hard to build that from scratch.
Interesting, Coran. The more, like the higher amount of revenue you have, the more buyers there are for that market.
Yeah.
What is like the threshold? How do you think it is?
Sorry, mate, you just broke out there. Broke up there.
Yeah, sorry. We're live, so please bear with us. So Coran said something very interesting. Like the more revenue you have, like I think you mentioned $7 million, the more buyers there are. Is $7 million that magic number that attracts more buyers? And like, why do you think that is?
That was EBITDA, which is net profit.
Net profit, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just really hard to hit scale from scratch. And the reason there's more buyers at the top end of the market is there's a lot more capital at the top end than there is at the bottom end of the market. So, for example, you may have heard of Dollar Shave Club being acquired by Unilever for $1 billion. Now, that's a huge payday. I'm sure everyone on this call would happily sell their company for $1 billion, right? But that same year that they acquired Dollar Shave Club, Unilever worldwide spent $8 billion on marketing. So it's a matter of perspective, right? How much capital there actually is. Once there's these larger companies that are generating a ton of profits, Apple, for example, is sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars in cash. Companies like this, they need to deploy a lot of capital to see a return. Warren Buffett, probably one of the greatest or most famous investors in businesses of all time, he's sitting on a lot of cash. He needs to deploy a lot of capital at one time to get a return because he has so much capital to start with. If he invests in something for $1 million, even if he gets a 50% return, it's just not going to move the needle on $100 billion in capital, right? So it's perspective. There's a lot more cash at the top.
More cash at the top. Very good. Interesting. Okay. We have a question from Anthony. What are the add-ons or extras beyond the core business buyers are looking for or place the most value on?
This is a
you
great
mentioned
question,
some of these, but like, yeah.
So beyond the core business, what we're seeing a trend for right now, a couple of years ago, I started saying we need a focus brand, a tight focus brand. And now that is almost required to sell a business. Almost. There's still mixed businesses selling. It's almost required. Outside of the core business, the things that really matter right now and that the larger buyers are looking for is IP, defensible intellectual property. How do you defend your product against 1 million other sellers that can come and compete with you, right? And specifically, if they're trying to take your product into retail, into other distribution channels, how defensible is it? Can someone else just come in and dominate that space? And I'm not talking about creating a vacuum cleaner like Dyson did, for example, but how defensible can you make your product? How more effective can your product be? Can you constantly improve the product? Sometimes we see clients that just have a product and it's selling, so they don't even worry about it. And then competitors creep in with better features, a better product, right? So you constantly want to be keeping up to date on your top products and making sure they're the best they could be and defend them. Make sure you have IP in place. Intellectual property in China, for example, if you're selling in the US, you want to get your IP sorted in China if you're sourcing from China. We've had that on a deal recently, actually, where it looked like a competing manufacturer actually tried to register the trademark for our client's brand, right? So this is pretty commonplace. You want protection worldwide, and you want as much protection as you can.
Definitely, yeah. I strongly recommend that as well. I mean, if your brand is successful, be careful that someone in China doesn't in China. I think the worst case is they can actually block your brand from being exported out of China. They can actually stop it at China customs. So I definitely I agree with Coran on that. That's very important. I feel like I talked with the other 7-figure sellers, and this is a common theme. You really want to build a moat around your product, right? Like especially with IP, trademarks, patents. So it's not so easy for competitors to just come and take your business. Now, are there any other best practices you're seeing successful companies make to defend like their IP and these types of things?
Yeah, the big trend right now is building outside of Amazon. You want to shorten that distance between you and the customer. If you start on Amazon, it's a really great place to start to get traction, to build cash flow, but then take and invest some of that cash flow elsewhere to try and figure out how to sell direct to your customer. And a lot of times people go, oh, I'll just go pay for Facebook ads and I'll get an agency and I'll get them to run my ads for me. This rarely works. You really need to understand your customer. And what I would look to do is actually acquire a bunch of customers at once, not just sell to one. So a good example of this could be a Facebook group. It could be an Instagram account that has your ideal target market. It could be an email list that maybe you just make a strategic alliance with someone to get access to their email list and share revenues with them. Get closer to the customer, get closer to someone who has your customer, and then develop the relationships with your customer base. Literally had a call this afternoon with a very experienced consumer product buyer looking at an 8-figure deal we have in the market right now. He was saying, well, where's the customer database here? It's a mostly Amazon business. I can't market to these customers. That's what I need, right? To be able to take this into retail. So this is something that once you get that traction and once you're in that growth phase, also take some time to start building an off Amazon channel. That's really important. And I think in future, that's going to become expected if you want to sell your business within the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super valuable point. You want to get close to the customer. And, I've had that struggle just with my own Amazon business because, I was selling well, but the thing is I could never get any customer emails. I mean, white hat or TOS, from Amazon because Bezos, that's his customer. And he doesn't want us to have that data. So I think that's the biggest. As well, so you hear some noise in the background. Sorry, guys, we are live. Please bear with us. But yeah, that's a great strategy. You try to build a Facebook group, Instagram, email list, or work with some partners to have access to that to get close to customers. So if we can, moving forward, just for the interest of time, we had some questions about valuation. Okay.
Yeah.
Coran, could you speak briefly about, what is the best method for valuing your business?
So there's a lot of ways to value a business. And if you've ever heard anyone talk about valuations, they talk about SDE, they talk about EBITDA, they talk about monthly net profit, earnings, all these different terms, right? It gets really confusing, and it is confusing. That is important when it comes to sell, and that will factor into valuation. But what I did, because we have so much market data, I got our team to go back and review the last 12 months. And what we were looking at was revenue, because everyone knows their revenue. No one really knows what their net profit or seller discretionary earnings are. So I said to the team, can we look at a revenue multiple instead of net profit because everyone knows their revenue. And here's the great news. We have the solution for you. So a really great measuring stick. If you have revenues of $1 million to $5 million a year, the multiple that you could sell the business for just using your revenue alone is 0.4 to 1 times revenue. Now, I know that's a big range, but that gives you a range, a multiple range that your business could potentially sell for.
Wow, that's very cool. So if I understand correctly, if you're selling the $1 million to the $5 million range, you can calculate a multiple of 0.4 to 1x. How would you 1x? How would you get close to the top end of that, the 1x range?
Well, also the good news is that's not the limit. So the deals we've been marketing in the last 12 months, the same period, have been 0.8 to 1.5 times revenue in that same 1 to 5 million range. So it's not the limit by any stretch. But how do you get to the top of that range? I'll tell you, but I'll also give you a resource that we don't have in the document here, but a resource that's really helpful for this we've created is called FBA If you go over there, I actually have five categories that I go through. So you can rate your business based on these 5 categories. There's also a video of me walking you through that. So that's a great resource. So the higher you score on the scorecard, the better the chance you are closer to that end of the range. But we'll talk about these anyway, because we're on the call here anyway, right? So what are the things that really matter? Yeah. So number 1 is a targeted brand, right? If you don't have a targeted brand, start there. If you have a hero product, right? If one product is the bulk of your revenue, look at who that customer is and see what else they want to buy. Look at before, during, and after. What do customers buy? What does that customer buy before your product? What else are they buying around the time of buying your product or with it? And what do they buy after buying your product? And then start looking at building out a suite of products for that customer. So if you have a target market, if you have a diversification across your product suite, no one product more than 20 to 30% of your total revenue, the next thing to look at is sales channels to improve the multiple. Okay, so what you want to look at here, again, the 20 to 30% rule plays. So, and the shorter the distance to the customer plays. Now, unfortunately for Amazon sellers, I've never seen a buyer pay more for diversification across Amazon marketplaces. Despite what you've heard, I've never seen a buyer offer more in that scenario. What they will pay more for is if you have a channel that's outside of Amazon that's more than 30% of your revenue. But the type of revenue and the control of the revenue and the distance between the customer matters. So last year, that toy brand I was talking about before, they had about 30% of their revenue coming through retail. However, a lot of those retail accounts were brand new, so they didn't know if they were going to order. The orders were increasing, but a lot of them hadn't reordered yet. So the buyers were literally saying, well, that's cool that you've got extra revenue. We're not going to pay the top end of the toy industry multiple because we don't know how many of these are going to reorder, right? But we managed to put structure in the deal to capture some of that upside, which we can talk about later. But then you want to look at sales channels. And the sales channel that's valued the highest, that will get you the best multiple possible, is when you actually have direct line to the customer. So there's a company in the States here called Native Deodorant. You may have heard of this company. They built an amazing deodorant company. They sold to P&G for 10 times EBITDA, so 10 times annual profit. It's a $100 million deal. The company was only around for 2 years before they did this. And what they focused on, one, was creating the best damn deodorant anyone has ever seen, right? Obsessed about product quality. They also only sold through their website, and they had 60% repeat purchase. 60%. That's insane. People loved their product. So that's why it was valued so high. They had a unique product that was defensible. They really cared about their customer. They knew who they were. and they were selling directly to them, and they kept buying the product. That's a gold scenario there. So that's the gold standard, and that's 10x EBITDA. That's well more than a 1 times revenue multiple. Does that help? Does that help with that answer?
Definitely. And cool. Yeah, it sounds like they've checked all of those boxes, right? They they created the best product, or like a 5-star product. Did they patent it? Was it like defensible? Did they have some IP?
Not sure if what IP they had behind. That's a great question, actually. I'll look into that.
Yeah. Was super close to them, right? They had all the emails, right? And then only showed through their website 60% repeat purchase. That's insane. More than half the people they keep buying. And then it sounds like it's almost like a subscription product, right? I mean, deodorant, you run out, you gotta buy it again. You don't want to like stink, right? So obviously that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. And so I think you said that there were 5 categories according to your scorecard. Can you go over them again? Talk about the targeted brand, and what were the other 4?
Yep. So we had targeted brand, we had product diversification, we had sales channel diversification, and I didn't talk about the last 2. So nice catch. We could break out sales diversification into control of the customer. That should be its own category. And then operations. So who's actually running the business, right? The other thing is profitability. You want really high profit margins. The net profit margin of businesses that have sold over the last 12 months is closer to 30%. But unfortunately, most Amazon sellers just aren't aiming high enough, right? The average gross margin is 50 to 80% gross margin. You need to be aiming higher. A lot of people are looking at just what's selling and can I rank for this? They're not really thinking about profitability. That's super important. And so yeah, anywhere from 20 to 30% should be a target, right? Or more. We've seen clients with 40%, 45% net margins in some categories. And then the last is operations. So who's actually running the business? If it's just you running the business and there's no one else, you need to be replaced. And it's hard to replace a founder. So you want to get as much off your plate as you can to make sure that transitions with the business, right? So we had one business last year that it was a really great brand, had a lot of buyer competition when we took this to market. The buyers that acquired it at transfer and handover, despite us having multiple conversations about this, there was 3 founders that ran this business, 3 business owners that were friends. They were all leaving the business after. They had to put in additional calls to train the new buyers so that they could actually replace them because there was no staff to go with the business. So even if it's a contractor handling your customer service, if it's a logistics person, if it's inventory planning, if it's PPC, most people have that outsourced, but if it's a PPC person, get as much off your plate when you're in that growth optimization phase, not in the beginning, not in the first year. Just figure it out first. Use the cash flow of the business to build out the team over time when it makes sense, and then make sure they're transferring with the business. If it's your girlfriend or your wife, you probably don't want to sell them with the business. They might not like that so much. You're on the beach, they're still working, right? So keep that in mind. So yeah, that's important as well when it comes to transferring the assets of the business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of that that entrepreneurial book, that classic, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Yes.
He really talks about systemizing, so that way you're working on your business, not in your business. You don't want to be the business, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you get to the top of that revenue multiple that we were talking about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then we're happy to link that in the show notes, the.com, where our can.
Oh, I think we've lost you again.
Okay, again, we're happy to link that in the show notes. Is it FBAscorecard.com?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on. Talking about maximizing your selling price so you can double your exits. We have some questions about that. How can you sell an FBA business for at least 5x yearly profit? I think we touched on that, right? And is there a better time of year to sell, like timing, for example, Q1 or Q4? What do you think about that?
Yeah. So on the first one, how do you sell for a 5x multiple? Well, you need to have a 5-star business to sell it, right? So all of those categories, the more of those you have, the higher the multiple it could be, especially once you have size and quality. That's what we look for in a brand, right? We can apply our sales process to a business, but we see the most result where there's size and quality. Quality is those 5 things we talked about. Size is literally scale. How much scale have you built in the business? And that plays a really big part because some of these funds and some of these strategics just need scale to actually to acquire. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, like we talked about before. What was the second part of that question? Sorry.
Is there a better time of year to sell? For example, Q1,
yeah,
Q4?
Yeah. Sure. So it depends on the business. A lot of FBA businesses have seasonality to them. And most e-commerce businesses or retail in general, actually selling to the consumer directly, Q4 is going to be the best time of year. That toy company I was talking about last year, we sold that right before the Q4 rush because the bulk of that business was done in Q4. So that was intentional. We wanted to sell into the trend. If you have a heavy Q4 business, you probably don't want to sell after Q4. And the reason for that is you'll get the maximum profit for the business. But when you come to sell the business, the buyer needs to wait almost a full year to even start getting real sales, right? So they're not going to pay, they might pay a good multiple for that business and value it correctly, but they're not going to pay you all of that until they start making money. The reason someone buys the business is to fast forward the hurdles that you have to get started, get profitable, but they're really wanting the cash flow and they're wanting to get a better return on their investment than they're paying for the business. So seasonality, if you're heavy seasonal, ideally you want to sell into that season so the buyer can see some upside. They're not going to buy if there's no upside.
In other words, sell before Q4 so they can have that upside. They can maximize the sales volume during Q4.
Yeah, if you're heavily
how far
seasonal,
in advance would you go?
If you're heavily
seasonal, yeah. How far in advance?
Yeah, if you're less seasonal, so you just sell more in Q4, but the rest of the year still seeing good cash flow. That's the bulk of the clients we deal with. You can sell after Q4. That's fine. But if you're heavily seasonal, you want to prepare. You'd probably want to prepare in the summer. June in the States, the Northern Hemisphere. Summer, not where I'm from. Summer is Christmas where I'm from. But you want to prepare around June, July for the sale at the end of the year. And ideally with our clients, we're working with them anywhere from 6 to 24 months before selling to really optimize and maximize the value of their sale.
I see. Okay, great. And then we have another question that came in. It seems some sellers are doing very well right now during COVID. One reader said, my sales increased by over 120% due to the current situation. I hope and will do all I can to keep the current level. And my question is, how can I take advantage of this to make the most out of a potential exit?
Yeah. Well, it depends when you're going to sell. If you're trying to sell right now and you're up 120%, the first thing a buyer is going to say is, what is the chance that that's going to continue? So if it's clear that this is beyond a normal peak and it's probably not going to continue, that may get discounted. If you're planning for a sale, you, like the reader said, everything you can to maintain the sales is the answer for as long as you can. Or you want to see the other side of that curve. So, okay, am I still up year over year? And that's a good sign, right? That's what we're advising clients right now.
Interesting. Okay. And another question, should the holding company that owns the Amazon store, the brand, etc., should that be part of the sale? And how far out from the proposed sale should everything be in place? How long should the Amazon store products be trading prior to the sale?
So again, it's the stage of the business that's most important. Most people think, like I said at the start, they just think, hey, I want to sell my business. Let's go do that tomorrow. There's actually 3 questions that we ask our clients. One is, are you ready to sell the business? That's a very personal thing. No right or wrong answer. It's completely up to you. The second question is, will the market likely pay the value that makes it worthwhile selling? And then the third thing is your business ready to sell? And most people don't go to that third step because they don't know how, or they don't care. Like if you're working with a broker that doesn't do that, or a marketplace, you're trying to sell yourself, I bet you if a buyer's reaching out to you direct, they don't want you to do this because that's their upside, right? So you want to make sure that the business is in the right spot. So time actually is less, it's relative, right? We've seen a business, one of our clients go from 0 to over 8 figures in revenue in just 2 years. And we went through a sale with them. We've seen others take 5 years to get to 7 figures, right? So there's no real time that's applicable to everyone. It's the stage of the business that matters. And then is the business in the best spot to sell? And the answer on getting prepared is get prepared as early as you can and get a professional to help you with this. Someone that actually does Amazon business sales, right? That understands what the market's looking for. We actually have a formal exit planning service that can help with this. And like I said, we work with people anywhere from 6 to 24 months typically. Our exit planning clients are up to 5 years in advance right now. We're really optimizing the business. The longer you have, the more outcome you get from this because you know what to focus on. Have you heard the phrase that small hinges swing big doors? This is the case with a business sale. The little tweaks you make now, add some time to that. That's just the one thing that you can't hack, can't fast forward that unless, well, you can actually. You could acquire a business to pull your brand into that has more history than you, and then you can hack time. But time is something you just can't hack organically.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that quote. Small hinges swing big doors. These little tweaks, they make big changes, but it takes time. Okay. And going back to the company structure, should the holding company that owns the Amazon store brand, et cetera, be part of the sale? And how key is this business setup? When it comes to your exit.
It depends on the size of the business and the location. So it depends on your exit goal. If you're looking at that 6 to 7 figure range, most of those deals are asset purchases, so it doesn't matter as far as your entity because they're not going to acquire the entity, which also comes into play with tax planning. So talk to a tax attorney about your outcome if it's a stock sale or an asset-based sale, because there are tax differences, right? So you want to make sure your net result is the happy number for you, a hell yes number for you to sell, not figure that out later. But I digress. When it comes to the entity, ideally, you want the entity to just be this business, right? So if the buyer wants the entity and that's a part of their deal, that's a non-negotiable for them, and the deal is amazing for you, you want that to be transferable. So the more siloed this business can be as far as entity, bank accounts, tax returns, everything, the better. We're actually we've worked with a number of clients over the years. We're doing one right now where we're carving out a brand from inside a company. It's painful and it's scary because last year we had a deal. The buyer was a publicly traded company. We were doing a brand carve out. So there was an overall holding company that owned both of these brands. We were selling one of them. We had the clients work with a bookkeeper and their accountant to pull all the expenses and income apart. So this is this brand, this is that brand. The buyer went through and did their diligence. They found a $50,000 expense that was miscategorized, and it was found to be for the brand we were selling. Now, we were selling for almost a 4x multiple on cash flow there. So that was almost $200,000 that was removed from the purchase price. And rightly so, because there was an expense that was found that was miscategorized. So as much of that to be just your business that you're selling as possible will make all of that easier. So you don't have to worry about that and hope that there's no skeletons in the closet there when you go to sell.
Wow. Very interesting. Okay, we're almost running out of time. I just wanted to quickly touch upon preparation. Okay, if you apply the 80-20 rule, what's the most significant thing during prep of a business that maybe in hindsight should most often have been done differently? What would that be in your experience?
Not rushing to sell. Rushing to sell is only good for the buyer. It's not good for you as the seller. So take the time to properly prepare and make sure your business is in the best spot possible. And then the second thing that we've seen in the past that we really advise our clients on now is getting their tax planning in order before selling. You really want that set up, because that taxes are real, right? You can't get away from them. They're dramatically going to change the net result of selling your business. So yeah, preparation, not rushing to sell, and also understanding your taxes, as boring as that sounds, that's going to make a big difference for you.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. And then finally, in terms of the costs, we had several questions about this. Could you, Coran, touch upon what is the percentage cost of selling an Amazon business in terms of the legal cost, fees, commissions, etc., and what can one do to minimize these fees and expenses related to selling?
Yes. I love that you read that whole sentence. If you had have stopped, I was going to ask you to complete that sentence, because I read that before.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes time to sell your business, this could be the largest transaction that you've had to date, especially with our clients with releasing 7 to 8 figures of cash. It's life-changing money. For some people, it's FU money. It's like, I'm done money. I never have to work again money. This is not the time to cheap out on your advisors. We actually help our clients build a deal team to help them with the transaction. So us as the sell-side advisor, we're only one piece of that deal team, right? So you mentioned M&A advisors. Yes, you want an M&A attorney. So an attorney with transaction experience that's helped other businesses sell, that have Amazon or e-commerce experience. If that's the bulk of your business, you want someone there. And in actual fact, the attorneys that work on fixed fees aren't always the best choice. It depends on how complicated the deal is. You may actually want a per hour attorney that has more experience, especially once the deals are larger, the deal's terms get more complex. You want to know that you're legally protected, and you want to know that you're 100% confident with the deal. You might be out 50 grand on a 100 grand on a large deal, right? But if you're not comfortable and it's not the right deal for you, that's a small price to pay than if something goes wrong on a massive deal. So you also want on your deal team, you want an M&A attorney, right? Your sell-side advisor should be able to help with that. You want a tax attorney, an attorney, not a CPA, tax attorney. Highly recommend a tax attorney. I have one in the States. It's a CPA and a tax attorney, right? But interview a couple of them, pay them for their time, get their opinion on your situation. This is going to have a massive impact, especially when you're negotiating terms in the deal. You may be negotiating something that's actually worse for you as a net result, right? So you want to know what all of that is, and you want them available to you as you're doing the deal, right? So there's two. You want a sell-side advisor. So you want to make sure that the advisor you're using to help you sell the business has experience doing deals in your space, that has contacts with the buyers. They have a process to get the best price, best deal terms. For example, we don't use a list price, right? We build buyer competition. On 7 and 8 figure deals, we often get offers within the first 2 weeks, competing offers within 2 weeks. which is a very specific way that we do this. So you want someone who can do that for you, right? And helps you through, guides you through the whole transaction. And then a financial planner to actually help you with how to invest the money afterwards, right, as well. And make sure you're selling for enough money is something that you really want to think about. We've had a number of clients and friends in the past that have sold, later figured out it wasn't enough money for them.
Excellent. This is golden advice, and thanks for breaking that down. And definitely, I agree. I mean, this could be the biggest transaction for many of the sellers watching today. So, don't cheap out. Now's not the time to cheap out. You could be leaving a lot of money on the table. So definitely build out that deal team, and follow up with Coran as well. I mean, he really knows the space. I've seen him. He becomes highly recommended by a lot of people in the community. So I highly recommend for those of you guys that want to find out more to follow up with Coran. Before we get into that, Coran, you have something for our audience today as a reward for staying here the whole hour. Would you like to share more?
Sorry, Peter has a question I just want to answer. Can we pull that up on the screen?
Yes,
the last one?
Definitely. Peter. Coran, ever sold an Australian business to an American?
Yes. Yes, we have.
Yeah.
The owner was actually from the UK, but they lived in Australia. So yes, we have done that. I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, cool.
Thanks, Peter, for the
bonus. Yeah. So the bonus, Gary was asking, can we provide something to the audience? And my team and I had a brainstorming session about this. So what we're wanting to offer is for 4 people, and I'll turn it over to Gary of how we're going to pick the 4 people, but we're going to do a mastermind session with me, with 4 people from the audience today to optimize your business for sale. Because a lot of this stuff really depends on your specific situation. So we're going to spend up to an hour with 4 people to work on your business to maximize the value of your business when you go to sell.
Awesome. So if I understand that correctly, it will be 4 people getting on a mastermind call with you, Coran, and then to learn how they can optimize their specific businesses for the best exit.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And what do you think is the best way to do this? Do you want them to email you and then you pick the 4, or what do you think?
It's up to you. We could pick 4 people at random right now. We've had a lot of questions, a lot of good questions. Maybe we pick some.
Yeah, we had a lot of good questions. Yeah, Coran, why don't you decide which questions were the most valuable in your opinion, and then I leave this up to you because you're the expert. Okay, we've had a lot of questions. Can you see the chat? Can you scroll through? Why don't you pick the 4 just on the fly? And then, we are live, so I mean, this is totally unexpected. But Coran, can you pick the 4?
Yeah. So let's go with people that are on this live. So I'll just
definitely the people on live. And then, if you want to build your case, you guys, why should Coran pick you? Give your best reason. Why should Coran pick you? Coran normally works with 7 to 8 figure sellers. Okay, so he works with very established businesses normally, but why should they pick you? As people are typing in the chat window, Coran, how can people connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually got a Facebook group called Double Your Exit Community, and Jeff, our director of new business, and myself, we go live at 12 noon Central every day, at Monday to Friday, and we talk about different topics. And we've been doing this for over a month now because it started because we were bored with COVID, and then it became something that we really enjoyed. So jump in there. That's a free group to join. Also, if you have questions specific to selling your business or exit planning, hit us up at sales@thefbabroker.com, and the team will get back to you there. So, okay.
I just typed it in the chat window, so you can connect with Coran through his Facebook group, Double Your Exit Community, and then I just dropped the link in the chat, and then also email sales@fbabroker.com.
Yeah.
Okay, so
awesome. Okay,
yeah, this is
so
amazing.
How about we go 2 guys and 2 girls, because there's a good mix on this.
Definitely.
Okay, so Caitlin, you're in. Who else have we got here? Carl wants to be in, so we'll get Carl in. And who asked some great questions? Peter asked some great questions as well. And
which Peter? I think we have several.
Eric Kane,
Peter Curran.
Yep.
Eric Kane, congratulations. Congratulations, Carl. Congratulations, Caitlin.
And then we should get an Aussie on here too. Oh, Fung from Brisbane. There you go.
Fung from Brisbane.
Not biased at all.
Yeah. Fung Paula from Brisbane. Congratulations.
Cool.
Awesome. How should they do that? Should they just email you directly?
Yeah, so email sales@fbabroker.com and just put mastermind in the subject, and we'll get that scheduled and make sure we're all on the same time, on at the same time, so we can all help each other. But yeah, that'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, guys. This has been super valuable. Hopefully this has helped you guys potentially double your exit. And I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did. Everyone else did too. So thank you so much, Coran, for your time. And for those of you guys watching, I mean, I had Coran on at the 7-Figure Seller Summit online, and we interviewed Coran and 20 other 7-figure sellers and experts to level up your business. So if you haven't already checked it out, the 7-Figure Seller Summit, please check it out. It's I decided to release it again during COVID. So for you guys that want to stop binging on Netflix, Tiger King, and start leveling up your businesses, definitely check it out. You can also watch Coran's full session and get the other sellers as well. We have a free pass for you guys for a limited time. And if you want to upgrade as well to the all access pass, we do have, live Q&As with these experts to really, get your questions answered, get you unstuck so you can maximize your business. So definitely check it out, 7figuresellersummit.com. So with that, Coran, it's been a pleasure. I'm super grateful, my friend, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I hope you stay safe out there, and hopefully we can meet again in person someday soon. All right?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining.
All right. Excellent. Yeah. And thanks, everyone, for joining. You guys stay safe. We'll talk soon. See ya.